Democrats inevitably try to find some middle ground between where Democrats have always been and where Republicans have sprinted to. That middle ground, that compromise place, that triangulated center, ends up being a very, very right-wing place.
This used to be a Republican idea, by the way, this whole idea of the individual mandate, and suddenly it's like they got amnesia. It's like, oh, this is terrible. This is going to take away freedom for Americans all over the world, all over the country. So that's a little puzzling.
It would be puzzling if Republicans were anything like Democrats, but Republicans are not anything like Democrats. There is no liberal movement that pulls Democrats further and further to the left every year. Democrats pretty much stay the same, or they scooch a little bit to the right every year. It's not a slam on Democrats, it's just what's happened over time. Republicans, on the other hand, are sprinting to the right deliberately, even when it has bad short-term consequences for the next election. I mean, Republican ideas like the DREAM Act, Republican ideas like cap and trade, Republican ideas like the individual mandate in health reform, which you just saw the president talking about there, those Republican ideas, which Democrats decided to embrace as a gesture of moderation, those ideas are now communism. Told you we'd get back to that. Communism! They were Republican ideas 5 minutes ago, but now they're communism. And you know, Olympia Snowe is not even an exception to that. Olympia Snowe voted, for example, to create the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But then when it came time to appoint somebody to be the head of that thing so it could actually run, she filibustered his nomination. Was there anything wrong with Richard Cordray as a nominee? Nope. It was just a bad idea to have somebody running that agency that she had just voted for. And so that is the context. The Republican Party and the American right doing something that the Democratic Party and the Democratic left are not doing. There is no mirror image here. This is about the right. And what we are left with is the state of Maine, right? The moderate, common sense driven, not particularly partisan people of the great state of Maine, now all of a sudden, in a surprise, having to replace their anomalous, long-time, middle-of-the-road-ish Republican senator. What's the choice going to be? Do Mainers want to bet on another lab rat in this grand political science radicalization experiment that the Republicans and the conservative movement have been engaged in for the last generation? This experiment that Olympia Snowe just said she does not want to be part of anymore? Or might Maine pick a Democrat for that seat instead? Joining us now is one of Maine's 2 Democratic members of the House of Representatives who is reportedly considering running for the Senate seat. But why take reportedly for an answer when we can just ask her? Congresswoman Shelley Pingree represents Maine's 1st District. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Do you think that the National Republican Party and Maine have become a bad match?
Well, I do think Olympia Snowe was accurate in her reflection of the fact that the party had changed, she hadn't. And, in her statement and speaking to her on the phone, I think she found this, just untenable. I think you did a great job explaining the fact that it's the Republican Party that's gone to the extreme, while Democrats have actually gotten more moderate or conservative, or at the very least stayed the same. It's made the Senate a very difficult place to operate.
Is it a place that you might ever want to work? Are you, in fact, thinking about running for this seat?
Oh, I am absolutely thinking about running for this seat. This isn't anything I was contemplating. As of yesterday, we had 2 U.S. senators who were going to stay for a very long time. But we've been flooded with calls and emails and people offering to help. And I think people understand nationally and certainly in our home state, this Senate seat could tip the balance or make it possible for Democrats to stay in control in a time when Republicans have gone way too far to the right for my state or for any other state, frankly.
Speaking to the state of Maine right now, obviously a lot of liberals from the state of Maine watch this show, but we hear from a lot of conservatives too. If you were making your case to the voters of the state of Maine right now, would you tell them that as a senator they should expect you to be essentially a moderate in keeping with the record of Olympia Snowe, who's basically a moderate in her own party, although she's leaned further and further right in recent years? Or would the state of Maine expect you to be a strong progressive in that seat?
Well, I've been a strong progressive in the House. I was previously in the Maine Senate, and Maine has chosen to re-elect me over and over. So I think that I reflect the views of many Mainers, but I think we look at it a little differently. We're not a hyper-partisan state. We're a third Republican, a third Democrat, a third Independent. We like Olympia Snowe. We like Shelley Pingree. So the fact is, people in Maine, they look for common sense solutions. They look for people who will reach across the aisle, find common ground. We're a state, I think, that in the long run wants to fix the problem, not get stuck in ideology. And I think that's what people want you to run on. They want you to talk about what you've done, your record, the things you're engaged in, fighting for the middle class, clean energy jobs, health care, things that matter to everybody that aren't really left or right. And I think they want us to move beyond political ideology, constant elections, one fight after the other. They want things to start being fixed and feel good about America and feel good about their children's futures. Because
of that reputation that the state of Maine has, and then I think frankly a lot more states are like that than get credit for it in the country. I think that reputation is why it was so surprising in 2010 when Maine elected not just a lot of Republicans at the state level, but elected a Tea Party guy, pretty extreme far-right guy, Paul LePage, to be governor of the state. Republicans took control of the House and the Senate there. How has Republican governance at the state level under Paul LePage and those Republicans at the state level affected Mainers' view and your view of the two parties? Oh, I think it's gotten people feeling a little frustrated with the Republican Party. And remember, we put Governor LePage in the State House with 38% of the vote. It was a three-way race. That can happen in Maine politics. You get an independent, a Republican, a Democrat, and you end up electing somebody that really doesn't reflect everyone in the whole state of Maine. I think people are very frustrated about that. I spent all Sunday at the caucuses in Maine, even before I knew I was considering this seat. And the fact is, people, they're frustrated, they're tired, they don't like the agenda of the governor or the way that our legislature has moved too far to the right. I think they're ready for a big change, and I think we're going to see a lot of changes in this election cycle. Congresswoman Shelley Pingree, Democrat of Maine. A lot of attention going to be paid to you in the next few days as you make this decision. Thanks for talking with us about it tonight. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Shelley Pingree telling us she